Hey everybody, it's Adam from Unity Sourcing and Roasting. Today we're going to find the tasting notes of a new coffee. Tasting notes are incredibly subjective. My experiences versus your experiences are all super different. Something I might find very pleasing might be something you detest, might be something this person has never even tried before. So really what we're trying to do is find common ground and kind of give you an insight into what we think. The coffee we have is the Loma La Gloria Red Bourbon Black Honey from producer Annie Ruth. This is a really wild coffee. It's going to be super fun to find all of the tasting notes. This is not one of those coffees that might just have one or two very simplistic tasting notes. This is going to require some in-depth analysis and being really critical, because on our bags, we only like to choose 3. First, we're gonna get the dry smell. We're gonna grind the coffee and just smell it dry. This is called the fragrance. And this might end up as one of the tasting notes. This coffee I expect to have a very loud and pronounced and intense fragrance. And this is the best part because we get to lift the cups off the table and sniff. This is awesome. I'm getting some kind of red fruit. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure if I'm being impressed upon because it has a reddish tint. It's really sweet. It's got a really good nutty profile, like a hazelnut in a really awesome way. That's almost more like a blackberry, which is one of the best tasting notes. So I'm using 3 cups. As I said earlier, this is a pretty wild coffee. From our most approachable to our wildest, this is very much over here. So I wanted to give at least 3 cups so I could make sure that it's all balanced and uniform. I'm sensing an incredible amount of uniformity in this coffee, which is really exciting because very often with these really wild coffees, some cups are different than others, and then you kind of have an issue. I'm sensing an incredible amount of consistency here with some type of red fruit that's yet to be determined. Then we're gonna hit it with water, hot water. And once we hit it with that hot water, we're gonna smell it again, and that's called the aroma. And we might find that the aroma and the fragrance are really different from each other. Ultimately, they all lead to what the smell of the coffee is. All right, let's hit this with some water. Okay, let's get our wet aroma. Wow, that's like creamy, like cream soda. And like some kind of red wine. There's some kind of cool funk that's happening. Strawberry, rhubarb. I knew this coffee was going to be complex. It's going to be very hard to pick just 3. We want to maybe find a balance between the most exciting, wild, like fun, like buzzworthy tasting notes, but also the ones that kind of ring through during all of these different times, during the dry smell, the wet smell, the break, when it's hot and when it's cooling. What is something that lasts all the way throughout? After about 4 minutes, we do what's called the break, where we take a spoon and we break that crust, and obviously you get in there and you sniff it. And as we're sniffing the break of the crust, we get a 3rd sense of smell of this coffee. All right, we're here at 4 minutes, and we'll do the break. That was just like pure watermelon in like the most fun way. It reminded me of like the 90s being on a slip and slide and there's like sun-kissed watermelon. It's also like grape juice, like Welch's grape juice or something like that. Just kind of something that's loaded with sugar and really dense. So I'm really excited. I got so many complex notes here that we're just gonna have to look at the running tally later on and figure out what pops up the most. After that, we're gonna let it cool for about 12 minutes. Around 12 minutes, we can take our first sip. This is what happens when it's hot, and we might find that when the coffee is hot, versus when it's starting to cool, we get different tasting notes. We might find that the acid kind of modulates a little bit from going hot to cool. We might find that the sweetness will go up or down. What I tend to notice is that the finish gets much more clean from hot to cool. So that's why we taste it around 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, and beyond. Here we are at 12, 13 minutes, and we're about to take our first slurp. And this will give us a real sense of what the coffee is like, but it won't be the complete picture. You want to really not disturb the grounds as you go in and put your spoon in there. Wow, so right off the bat, some type of like tangerine, really citric. And having cupped this coffee 2 or 3 times in the past, I'd never gotten that citrus, so that's really cool. Right off the bat, I'm noticing that the finish, the aftertaste, is really clean. It's a little short. I expect it to lengthen as the coffee cools, but that to me is an indicator of both coffee quality, coffee freshness, and also the roast profile. If you're getting a dirty or dry finish, to me that's the worst, and this coffee does not have that. It's very exciting. This one almost is a bit more syrupy in a great way, but I imagine that they'll kind of even out as we get closer to 16, 17, 18 minutes. So it's like orange sherbet, which I had a lot as a kid. Orange sherbet, it's like a fun tasting note. It's a fun item, and this is a fun coffee. So that to me seems like something that's going to make the grade here. I'm getting something really light and fun. So I'm thinking it's like an orange wine. It's like, they took white grapes, but they left a bunch of skin contact on there. And it was like pulling out some tannins, really interesting and a little funky. So I'm sensing like a pattern of tangerine, sort of citrus, orange sherbet, and orange wine. So we might kind of roll with a fun little orange themed tasting note thing, or we might diversify, we'll see. We're about 17 and a half minutes in, and the aftertaste is like really long and really intense, like that orange wine we were talking about earlier. Really funky, but also really clean. So as we're around like 18 and a half minutes, we haven't really talked about the body or the mouthfeel yet. It is still creamy, and creamy is something that we were noting on the aroma. So something creamy might make it on the label. It's almost like a nut butter, like one of those fresh ground almond butters, like really good, really fresh. All right, around 20 minutes, this coffee is really starting to come alive. I feel bad that I committed to anything before this moment because it's starting to really intensify. All of that orange sherbet that we talked about before is now kind of like buckets of it being dumped on your head. All of that wine that we were talking about, the orange wine, we are like inside the vat as it's fermenting. This is a really intense coffee. I was really excited to see the acid pop, and it wasn't really there as it was hot around 12, 14 minutes. But around 20 minutes, I'm still sensing that acid in the finish. Really cool, really intense. But I'm loving how it just intensifies. The sweetness is just getting more and more like panela because it has that high intense mineral content. It's super creamy, it's super orangey, and it's super winey. I think that's where we're going to end up. Thank you all for joining me. I love to come up with tasting notes, though I really respect everybody's tasting notes on the table. Usually when we do this, we all do it together. And then maybe Nolan has a note, maybe Megan has a note, and Tyler as well, Simone. But because it's a team effort. It's what you experience, it's what I experience, it's what everybody experiences. And the point of all of this, aside from just having a ton of fun, is calibration. and us both saying, wow, this is a really bright, creamy, winey, orangey coffee. Thank you all for tasting with me today. We did the Red Bourbon Black Honey from Loma La Gloria, and I think we found a bunch of awesome tasting notes, and I'm really excited to share this coffee with you.